The Iliad is an ancient Greek epic poem that tells the story of a man named Achilles during a small part of the 10-year Trojan War. It's 700 pages long, and we think a guy named Homer created it, but we're not really sure. We're not really sure who Homer was either, but people think he was blind, and apparently people didn't write down poems when he was around, and it's not like he could anyway if he was blind, so someone had to memorize the entire thing and tell it to people, which is basically the equivalent of listening to the 14-hour audiobook today, which is about as boring as it sounds.
The Iliad by Homer. Translated by Samuel Butler. Book 1. Recording by Joshua Christensen. The Quarrel.
Or you could try and watch the movie Troy with Brad Pitt, but Troy is awful. There are about 2 Dilian characters in the Iliad, but only a handful of them are important. Essentially, there are the Greeks and the Trojans. The Trojans are defending the city of Troy, and the Greeks are trying to take it. They've pretty much been doing this for 10 years. The Greeks have Achilles, who is the hero of the story, and he's actually a huge baby throughout the book. Then we have Achilles' best friend Patroclus, who might be his lover. He doesn't do anything but die in the story, and a few others. The Trojans have Hector, who is the bad guy in the story, his brother Paris, who pretty much caused the war, and also a few others. Finally, there are the gods who overlook the battle, and if you include them in the list of characters, it increases exponentially. The Iliad is all about constant warfare. There are few points throughout the book when people aren't fighting, and somehow those points are usually more boring. From Achilles' point of view, the story goes like this. Agamemnon is being a jerk because he takes Achilles' girlfriend, so Achilles decides to not fight in the war and sit in his tent laying in bed all day so that all the Greeks see how much they really need him. But he really wants to hedge his bet, so he prays to his mom, the goddess Thetis, and asks her to convince Zeus to let the Trojans absolutely destroy the Greeks. And Zeus really has nothing better to do since he's immortal, so he does it. Now most of the book describes Greeks being slaughtered as Achilles sits in his tent. Finally, Achilles gets what he wants, and Agamemnon agrees to give his girlfriend back and a bunch of money, but he decides to be a jerk about it and says he's going to sail home the next day and retire from battle. Eventually, Patroclus begs Achilles to go fight, but Achilles comes up with the better idea of having Patroclus wear his armor and lead his army, which is ultimately foiled 5 seconds later when Hector kills Patroclus and then strips his corpse and takes Achilles' armor. Which is kinda weird, but then to be even weirder, he puts it on and runs around with it. Achilles has no idea that this has happened until he is told by a messenger, and this is where Achilles flies into a rage and swears to kill Hector. But his mother warns him that he is fated to die soon if he fights, so Achilles has to make a choice that ties in with the overall meaning of the book. He explains by saying, either if I stay here and fight beside the city of the Trojans, my return home is gone, but my glory shall be everlasting. But if I return home to the beloved land of my fathers, the excellence of my glory is gone, but there will be a long life left for me, and my end in death will not come to me quickly. It's not really a tough choice for him because he really doesn't even consider going home now. Next, Achilles sets out to kill Hector, and finally after chasing him around Troy forever, they fight. Achilles bests Hector in combat, and Hector knows that he's a goner, but he pours his heart out in asking Achilles to allow him an honorable funeral, and not to desecrate his body. Achilles is like, nope, and finishes him off, then ties his corpse to his chariot and rides around with it, sealing his fate that his death is soon to come. However, the gods prevent the body from being injured, and Hector's father, Priam, visits Achilles and asks him to give him the body. Achilles begins blubbering like a baby as he remembers his father and Patroclus' death, and he agrees. The end. Homer's message in the Iliad is that while the gods may have been immortal, humans aren't, and the Greeks believed that once your fate was set, you could not escape it, and those who tried were cowards. However, fate doesn't determine every single thing in life, only how it ends. At the end of the book, Achilles learns that revenge may have not been the best choice. If he had grieved Patroclus instead of flying into rage, he could have returned home and enjoyed a prosperous life, but instead he gets killed by getting shot in the heel and misses out on all that life has to offer. and apparently that takes 14 hours to explain.